Cinderella. Once upon a time, in a far-away kingdom, there lived a sweet and gentle girl named Cinderella. She had once been happy, living with her loving father and mother. But when her mother passed away, her father remarried a proud and unkind woman who had 2 daughters of her own. At first, Cinderella hoped her new stepmother and stepsisters would love her like family. But after her father passed away, everything changed. Her stepmother took over the house and forced Cinderella to do all the chores. "Scrub the floors," the stepmother ordered. "Wash my clothes," the older stepsister snapped. "Bring me my breakfast," the younger one demanded. Cinderella never complained. She simply smiled and sang as she worked, dreaming of a happier life. But in secret, she often sat by the fireplace, watching the tiny flames dance, and whispered, "One day, something wonderful will happen." Her stepsisters laughed at her, calling her Cinderella because she was always covered in ashes from the fire. One day, a royal messenger arrived at their home, carrying a golden envelope. "The king invites all young ladies to a grand ball at the palace," the messenger announced. "The prince will choose his future bride." Cinderella's heart leaped with excitement. "Oh, how wonderful!" she gasped. "I'd love to go." Her stepsisters burst into laughter. "You, go to the ball," sneered the older one. "You have nothing to wear," added the younger. Her stepmother narrowed her eyes and smirked. "Well, Cinderella, if you finish all your work and find something suitable to wear, you may go." Cinderella rushed to her room and found her mother's old gown, carefully tucked away. Though a little worn, it was still beautiful. With the help of some friendly mice and birds, she patched it up and added ribbons. When she finally put it on, she twirled in delight. "Now I can go to the ball." But when her stepsisters saw her, they grew jealous. "That dress is ours!" they shrieked. Before Cinderella could react, they ripped the dress apart, tearing the ribbons and pulling off the lace. Her stepmother gave a cruel smile. "Now, you have nothing to wear." As they left for the ball, Cinderella collapsed onto the floor, sobbing. Suddenly, the room filled with light. "Why are you crying, my dear?" came a kind voice. Cinderella looked up and saw a beautiful woman in a sparkling gown. Who are you?" Cinderella asked, wiping her tears. "I am your fairy godmother," the woman said with a warm smile. "And I'm here to help you." With a wave of her wand, the fairy godmother worked her magic. A pumpkin turned into a golden carriage. 4 mice became white horses. A rat turned into a proud coachman. And her old dress transformed into a shimmering silver gown with tiny glass slippers that sparkled like the stars. "Oh, it's beautiful!" Cinderella gasped. "Now, go to the ball," said the fairy godmother. "But remember, the magic will fade at midnight. You must return before then." With a joyful heart, Cinderella stepped into the carriage and rode to the palace. When Cinderella arrived at the grand palace, everyone turned to look at her. "Who is she?" whispered the guests. Even her own stepsisters did not recognize her. The prince saw her and was instantly captivated. "Would you do me the honor of dancing with me?" he asked, offering his hand. Cinderella blushed and nodded. As they danced, the prince felt as though he had known Cinderella forever. "You are the most wonderful person I have ever met," he said with a warm smile. Cinderella, feeling light as air, laughed softly. "And you are very kind." They danced across the grand ballroom, twirling under golden chandeliers. The music soared, and Cinderella felt as though she were living in a dream. But then, boom! The palace clock struck midnight. Cinderella gasped. She had completely forgotten about the time. "I must go," she cried, pulling away from the prince. "But wait, I don't even know your name," the prince called after her. Cinderella didn't have time to answer. She ran down the palace steps as fast as she could. But as she hurried, one of her glass slippers slipped off and landed on the steps. Before the prince could reach her, Cinderella had disappeared into the night. As she rushed home, her gown turned back into rags, and her carriage into a pumpkin. She barely made it back before her stepmother and stepsisters arrived, still bragging about the ball. "You should have seen the mysterious princess," one of them gushed. "She was so beautiful. The prince only danced with her," the other added. Cinderella only smiled to herself, knowing that for a short while she had been that princess. The next morning, the kingdom was buzzing with excitement. "The prince is searching for the mysterious girl who lost her glass slipper," the townspeople whispered. The royal messengers arrived at every house with a single glass slipper in their hands. "The prince has declared," the messenger announced. "Whoever fits this shoe shall be his bride." Cinderella's stepsisters pushed forward immediately. The first one squeezed and shoved, but her foot was far too big. The second gritted her teeth and tried, but her toes wouldn't fit inside. Cinderella stepped forward. "May I try?" she asked softly. Her stepmother laughed cruelly. "You! Impossible!" But the royal guard had been instructed to let every maiden try. Cinderella sat down, and as soon as she slipped her foot inside, the shoe fit perfectly. The room fell silent. Then Cinderella reached into her pocket and pulled out the other glass slipper. "It's her!" gasped the royal messenger. "She is the princess." Her stepmother and stepsisters stared in shock as the guards led Cinderella to the palace. When Cinderella arrived at the palace, the prince was waiting for her at the grand staircase. "It's you," he whispered, smiling brightly. Cinderella nodded. "Yes, it's me." The prince took her hands. "I have been searching for you. Will you stay with me forever?" Cinderella felt tears of joy in her eyes. "Yes," she said. with all my heart. That very day, Cinderella and the prince were married in a grand celebration. The kingdom rejoiced, and Cinderella's kind heart was rewarded with love and happiness. As for her stepmother and stepsisters, the prince forgave them. But they were never allowed to treat Cinderella badly again. And from that day on, Cinderella lived happily ever after, in a palace filled with music, kindness, and love.